Hey everybody, welcome back to Cityscape Brewing. I'm Dennis Fields. Today we're going to be covering a couple of beer events that I recently went to. First being the beer and branding event where I brewed this beer, the Chips and Salt-sa Cerveza, which is a Mexican faux lager. I did a brew day video on that. Go check that video out. I'll have it in the link description below. And then secondly, I went to the NCHI, which is the North Carolina Homebrew Invitational. That one is an event where they have a whole bunch of different homebrew clubs, and it was a really fun event. We're gonna go through both of those individually and we'll talk about them. First things first, let's touch on the beer and branding event. All right guys, I just arrived at Noda Brewing Company in Charlotte. We're doing their beer and branding event today. If you're not familiar with what that is, it's a really fun event. All of the brewers get together and they pair you with branding professionals and students, and they showcase a secret ingredient in which the brewers will need to showcase in their beer. In this case, this year was salt. So I brewed a beer called Chips and Salsa, which is kind of a play on eating chips and salsa. I used flaked maize and Munich malt to give it kind of a bready tortilla flavor. I used poblano peppers in the secondary to give it like that salsa chili pepper flavor, and then of course used sea salt in order to give it that chips and salsa flavor. What we're gonna do tonight is actually show you what the beer and branding event is all about. So the branding portion of it is really about creating a brand to the beer that you're making. So they talk to the brewers during the initial event that happened a few months ago, and they start getting design ideas. They actually create a 6-pack and a label for the beers, and then Noda Brewing Company will choose one of them as the winner and brew it here at Noda Brewing. And so they'll also have second, third, fourth place prizes and other things for the branding professionals as well. And so it should be a lot of fun. We're gonna go get set up. I have my beer with me. All the brewers get a different table to showcase their beer. You get to go around, you get to try and test all of the other ones. So it should really be fun. I'm really looking forward to actually seeing the branding side of things for this as well, because I have not seen that yet. And so let's take you through it and we'll get after it. So at the event, we get to our table and we were able to find our beer and branding label that was on our table. So it had our name of our beer, it had the brewer's name, and then it had a sample of the branding that was provided by the marketing folks that were doing the branding. Here is a example of what that looked like. So this is the branding that my individual that I was teamed up with worked on, and I think she did an amazing job. It's got the chips, it's got the different ingredients for the salsa, and it's also got the salt, which is the main ingredient that we had to showcase in this beer, kind of sprinkled throughout the label. And then she even put the little Cityscape Brewing logo on the top of the bottlenecks, which I thought was really cool. So I thought you did a really good job. There were some really creative designs. So there were dozens of beers there available for people to taste and then ultimately vote on. And so there was a ticketed event that came in and tried each of the beers. I had a really good showing at my table. I think there were beers that were not great, and some of them just turned out better than others, right? Just like every beer batch. But as people came up to my table and were trying beers, they really gave me good feedback. And I don't know that people would do that if it was bad, right? So people would come up and they'd be like, oh my gosh, I can really pick out the tortilla chips. I can really pick out the salt and the chilies in the back end, and it's like eating chips and salsa. This is great. And so if people were taking a drink and they would be like, oh yeah, okay, good, and then they didn't move on, they wouldn't give you quite that feedback. But I had a lot of really good feedback from most of the people that visited my table. I was very happy with the turnout and how my beer turned out specifically. As the evening kind of wound up, I went around and I was able to look at all of the other branding that was done for each of the bottles, and man, there are some really talented folks. Very, very professional. I mean, like you would pick them off the store shelf. Most of them look like that. So specifically with the chips and salsa beer, man, it turned out really good. I will definitely brew this beer again. Next, let's talk about the North Carolina Homebrew Invitational. This was by far one of the coolest things that I've done as part of my homebrew club that I'm a part of. Dozens of other homebrew clubs that were there representing and their beers. They had about 100, I think there's either between 110 and 115 different beer styles. And so everybody had a tent location. They had their beers on tap. You know, everybody brought sample cups. And then you had all day to really try different beer styles from different clubs. They had live music going. They had a big pig roast. We were able to chow down on probably some of the best barbecue that I've ever had in my entire life, along with kind of a giant potluck. Everybody brought a side or a dessert or something else to have with it. And it was really just an all-day event of trying different home brews, listening to some good music, and at the end of the day, we all were able to make a selection for what we thought was the best brew out of all 110, 115, but they also did door prizes throughout the day. I won a 40-pound bag of Pilsner malt, so that was awesome. I mean, I use Pilsner malt all the time. And so we stayed overnight, 2 nights at the big kind of open field around this farm. And boy, what an experience. You get to meet a bunch of people you probably wouldn't otherwise have met, try different beers, some good, some not so good, and then compare your beers to everybody else's. Our club individually brought, I think, 5 beers, and I think they ranked pretty well amongst the other homebrew clubs that were there. So in summary, you know, attend events, join a homebrew club, and just brew with other people. Talk to other brewers. It's gonna make you a better home brewer at the end of the day. You can really pick each other's brains, especially if they do styles that are very different than the styles that you generally make. It makes you well-rounded, and guess what? It's just plain fun. Thanks for watching my video. I really do appreciate it. Another couple ways that you can help support the channel is by hitting that like and subscribe button. You can also check out the merchandise in our store. I have other shirts. We got glassware, we got stickers, hats, sweatshirts, etc. Go check it out. Also, hit that video here. You know you want to.